you'll see hydrogen sitting all the way over there by itself, but they don't show that hydrogen has the same tone as carbon.
What do you mean by tone?
Same tone, same key of E. Same key of E. 40.5 hertz. The next one would be like 81 hertz. You go to...
Clearly I'm a scientist. Okay. But not only am I a scientist, but I've been playing music since I was 8. So this is a lot of years. Over 20 years. And I studied music theory. There is no relationship, according to what he's saying, for the elements on the periodic table and music theory. There's no one-to-one correspondence. Sorry, Terrence. It doesn't exist. It just doesn't exist. And if you actually, let's just humor this. So if you actually look up if you actually look up the frequency, middle C is about 440 hertz. Right? We're talking about music theory now, in terms of sound, the physics of sound. E, right, is 329 hertz. So even if he thought there was a one-to-one relationship, you even got the frequencies wrong. Let alone trying to connect it back to the periodic table. So there's a lot of holes here. He's just saying a lot of things that sound correct, but they're actually not.
Silicon, it will double up and would be 162 hertz. You'll go to cobalt and it'll be 324 hertz. It's, in that base, if you were to take the angles of incidence, or...
There's too much. There's too much in this video, and this is only 10 and a half minutes in. There's only 10 and a half minutes in. There's too much. It's related to something impacting a surface at a specific angle. Not the angles of bonds. It's not referring to the angles of chemical bonds. They're not held together by angles of incidence that require you shooting sending a signal hitting a surface at a specific angle. That's not what we're talking about here. I don't know why he keeps mentioning angles of incidence as if he's using it correctly. Please look this stuff up. We study this for a reason. It takes years to actually be competent enough in science for you to actually come up with your own theories. It took me 10 years to study general relativity before I could actually get to the point where I'm now making up or deriving my own extensions to general relativity or my own theories adding on to general relativity. You just don't wake up doing that. Chemistry's been around for 100 years or so? Somebody fact check that. But you don't wake up changing the entire periodic table of elements that's been around, since the 1800s. No.
The tones that they create, their color. Like you can turn color back into sound based upon, it's the same wavelength, it's just twice as long or much longer. So all you have to do is keep dividing light by 2.
Keep that up, Jamie.
You keep dividing light by 2, and you'll ultimately get back to the audible sound of it. Because...
Please pay attention. Throughout this entire episode, again, I watched the whole thing, and I had a headache afterwards. He keeps referencing 2. Keeps referencing the number 2. Having 2, if I multiply 1 times 1, I get 2. God, I can't even say that. The square root of 2, he has it on his t-shirt. He thinks 2 is some golden number that you can use in everything. It's not. 2 is just a number. It's an integer. It's something we use all the time. The square root of 2 is not some magical number. It appears in places because the square root of 4 is 2. Cool. We can reassociate or redefine the cubed root of 2 being 2 times the square root of 2. That's just simple arithmetic. There's nothing special about the square root of 2. You cannot have the resonant frequencies of these elements and get the next one, and the next one, and the next. That doesn't work. You can turn on any SEM, which is scanning electron microscope. You can turn on any other X-ray diffracting microscope, lithography. You can turn on an oscilloscope and pointing at a raw block of element. Carbon, nitrogen, hydrogen, lithium, beryllium, selenium. But you're not going to get half signals like that. That's not how physics or chemical physics works. Which is very disappointing concerning how he keeps touting that he used to be a chemical engineering major. Why throw the education out the window? You falsify the education and then you claim that, well, it wasn't correct. So I came off and he just made his own thing. Well, Terrence, that's not how science works. It's not how scientific investigation works. There's a process. You have to learn the basics. If you don't agree with the basics, then maybe you should go back and relearn what 1 times 1 means. I don't know.
There was a relationship between light and color, sound and tone, matter and shape. I put, I sent over Walter Russell's.
I was trying to get to that. That's what.
Yeah, it's Walter Russell's periodic table that he put together.
Here comes that name again. Before we jump into that, there is, y'all, I know you're going to ask this question. There is a relationship between the elements on the periodic table and colors that you see. Yes, that is true. Not true in the context that he is talking about. There are specific what we call spectra that these elements emit when their electrons change orbitals. That means that the electron is either gaining or losing energy. It will either absorb energy or it will emit it. The energy, the form of energy that electrons emit or absorb, it can either be heat or light. That's it. That's it. There's a part of this episode where Terrance Howard states that we lie, us scientists, we lie to you. We tell you, you can't see the entire spectrum. We can. This is how we take pictures of distant galaxies in every single band of the electromagnetic spectrum. You have pictures in all of them. Radio, microwave, infrared, visible light, which is sometimes called optical, ultraviolet, UV. We have X-rays, soft X-rays, hard X-rays. Hard X-rays are just higher energy X-rays, by the way. Gamma rays. Thank you, Incredible Hulk. There's another band higher than that. It's not contained in the electromagnetic spectra, but it's another type of spectra called cosmic rays. Neutrinos emit emission. And there's another one way above that. It's called ultra-high energy cosmic rays. All of these things that we detect, we've already known about these for decades. We've known about them, we've detected them, we have pictures. We turn the data into pictures. This is how you can see things. This is how James Webb has images. It converts the data into images. Now, The colors that you see on some of these images for astronomy pictures, they are false color images. What does that mean? That means we're not lying to you. That means we had to color the data in a way that can be interpreted by us. Because we can't just state that every single picture we see is black and white. That's not exactly what's going on. Some of these color images that you see, they are optical, meaning they're visible. That's the colors that we see. Other colored images are what we call, again, false colored, but they're just attaching a range of colors to match a range of data intensity. That's it. We're not lying to you. NASA's not giving you images that aren't real. They're real. I studied those things. I'm at NASA. They're real. We can show you the Romans being built right now. It's being built right now. We can show you the pieces. So these things are real. We're not going to spend billions of dollars on these things to tell you that it's fake. These are tax dollars. We're not going to do that. What you can do is educate yourself to make sure that you have the actual facts before you start touting that there are these weird resonant frequencies, not even resonant frequencies, because he didn't even mention resonance at all in this clip. In the entire 3 hours, he's talking about musical tones and frequencies and pressures and all these things, and you didn't mention resonance whatsoever. False information 101. At least get your keywords correct.
Now you compare that to
This is where it gets good.
Mendeleev
Didn't even get the name
Mendeleev's
correct.
periodic table.
Mendeleev.
You'll compare Walter Russell's to it, and you'll see something completely different. It's unwinding.
Whoa.
It's unwinding. And you see...
If you pay attention to the periodic table, it has specific information about not just things like atomic number, which kind of count the number of protons in an element, but it also counts atomic mass. It counts what we call electron orbitals, how electrons around the nucleus of an atom for a specific element are configured. That is a science. We've tested this for decades again. It also contains information, intrinsic information about the quantum mechanics, the quantum physics of the element, things like spin. I can tell you, for example, right now that calcium has a spin of 7/2. It's got a spin of 7/2. The calcium nuclei has a spin of 7/2. We've calculated. Atoms have spin, just like individual particles have spin. All this information contained in the periodic table of elements. Not this one, again, because we're going back, right? We've already determined that Walter Russell was a artist, philosopher, builder, musician, author, lecturer. He in no way was a scientist. He wasn't trained in science. He wasn't trained in chemistry. None of that. This guy literally was kind of a precursor to science fiction. Imagine George Lucas coming out and saying that he had solved anti-gravity because he made Star Wars. Come on. Imagine if everybody in the MCU, the Marvel Cinematic Universe, came out and said, oh, all the science that we made in the movies is actually real. Well, we know that. We would love for Wakanda to be real, but it's not. I would love for vibranium to be real, but it's not. This is on the same lines. Mind you, there's no scientific evidence for what Walter Russell created. So we're moving on from there. He goes on for another 20 minutes talking about this periodic table that Walter Russell put together. Just because, again, it's made off of a circular path or a spiral path instead of blocks, squares on a table, on a chart. I'm pretty sure if the periodic table of elements was built using circles instead of blocks for the elements, he might have still been using the regular table. Just a theory. Maybe he doesn't like the table. Maybe he just doesn't like straight lines.
See, there's a relationship that hydrogen.
So you had figured this out at a young age?
I had already seen this. This was all inside of that palace. I had access to it, and I knew the relationship.
You saw this in dreams?
I saw it as a circle. Everything was a full circle laid out, and each area was just expanding, like wrapping a rag around your hand. The first wrap, it's so tight. The very first wrap is so tight. That's the first one that Walter Russell did, yeah.
This headache I have is so tight. But we're going to move on from this periodic table because it's literally giving me a headache all over again.
Coming from the sun, coming from the earth, it's the waste product from it. But it hits our magnetic field, and then it gets pulled right back in and gets compressed again, and now it becomes electricity for the earth, and then it pushes itself right back out again at the equator, pressure condition. It spins northeast, is silicone octave for there to expand out, but there is the same titanium, vanadium, chromium, magnesium, and iron.
For the love of God, it's manganese. Please. It's not magnesium, it's manganese.
That exists between aluminum and silicone. But nature doesn't allow us to unravel that. But now, with the wave conjugations, we can. We could